Welcome back. Today I'm going to analyze a game that I finished recently, and there's a really cool part in it where my king walks all the way to the other end of the board, and I'm going to start with that. This is going to be at least a 3-part video, where first I'm just going to show off my king walk, and I think that helped me win the game. Then I'm going to go back and analyze the blunder and a couple of mistakes that the game review said that I made. And thirdly, I'm going to look at the end game where I knew I was ahead, but I had to win the wand game. And sometimes that's difficult. And I think I missed a couple of opportunities there, so I'm going to take a look at that too. So hopefully I'll remember to put the timestamps in the description so you can get to whichever part you're more interested in. Let's just take a look. This is the position on move 27. My opponent, who is rated more than 100 points higher than me, or was when we were playing, has traded off our queens. I feel like we're in a fairly equal position, and the analysis bar, which you can see at the left, agrees with me. I have a very slight advantage, it says. My opponent's actually up 1 pawn, but we both have 2 minor pieces, we both have 2 rooks, and most of our pawns. My king is safely castled, so I can only assume that the reason I have a slight advantage is because my opponent's king is kind of stuck in the middle of the board. They've advanced their pawns perhaps too far to protect them. I honestly thought I had a mild disadvantage here because I had 2 bishops in a locked position. Very often when there's this many pawns on the board and they're all protecting each other, very often a knight becomes more powerful. But anyway, I thought we were close to even, and I was correct in that assessment. But here, after my opponent moved this rook over with, I assume, the intention of advancing this pawn, or perhaps taking here and then trading rooks, or perhaps waiting for me to take so they could take back, something like that. I made my first king move, and over the course of the next 12 or 13 moves, my king gets all the way to the other end of the board, which, here we go. My idea was that they were probably going to take this pawn. That's what I was assuming, and then I would take back, and my king would be very well placed to get their h-pawn. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I wasn't worried about the rook being in danger because my bishop guards the rook here on f1. Anyway, my opponent did take that pawn, but I decided to take their rook first instead to get rid of that whole situation. They have to take back or let me just have the rook for free, and then I'll take this pawn, and then I don't have to worry about their rook coming over here and protecting their h-pawn. So that's what happened. My king moved forward. There's nothing they can do to protect their h-pawn because their rook can't get over there because their bishop's still in the way. So they moved their bishop, but it was too late. I went ahead and took the pawn. Now, perhaps here they could have checked me, but I don't know that it would have done any good because I would have just captured it with my bishop. Maybe that's what they saw. So after moving their bishop here, they decided to go back here and I guess come around this way. I assume they were aiming at this rook. Regardless, I brought my king forward to protect that square. I hadn't yet decided to take my king all the way to the end of the board, but I'm more than halfway there. They put their bishop here to protect their rear pawn, and seeing that I was guarding the g6 square, I realized I could check them here. So I did. They moved there. This opponent was rated more than 100 points higher than me while we were playing the game. Now slightly less than 100 points higher than me because I beat them. I thought, wait, if I go here and they don't go back because they don't want to draw against me, right? Then I can come in here with my king and challenge that bishop. If they do go back, I'll check them again and we could repeat and I'll get my draw. So I checked them. They didn't go back, so I brought my king in there to attack this bishop. Well, now where can it go? All the way back? That's about it, right? Because it can't go here, I'll take it. It can't go to the h-file because my pawn is guarding that square. So they protected it with the rook. The reason that I didn't go for it just yet is because I thought they would check me and then be able to win this pawn and my bishop would be hanging. So this was my thought. If I went forward now, they would check me. Yes, I could win their bishop at that point, but then they would win this pawn. And, oh, you know what? I could have just moved the bishop then. Okay. But anyway, I moved the bishop to protect that pawn because I was seeing a couple of moves ahead. Not 3 moves ahead, obviously, but 2 moves ahead. Well, they brought the bishop back to check me. Well, I was about to move my king toward that rook anyway, so I did. Now I'm almost to the back rank. They brought their king to protect the rook. And here I thought about it for some time, and I realized I can remove the defender of the rook by checking. They wouldn't have to take, but they would have to vacate that spot with their king. And they can't come this way to continue protecting the rook because my king guards that square. So they would have to either take my bishop or move away, one of those ways, and then I would win the rook. So that's what I did, and it worked, and I won the rook. And now my king is all the way on the other side. And I have not yet looked at these moves with Stockfish. As you can see, I have the, oh, you can't see, but I have the lines turned off. So I don't know if all of those were my best moves all the way down. But anyway, I was pretty proud of that. From having a safely castled king on G1, I went up here, won this pawn, and brought my king all the way down there. And here I was up 2 points of material, and Stockfish says I'm up +3 at this point. So I think it was a good idea. Again, I don't know if all those moves were the best, but getting it all the way down there did work out well for me. And here I just had to nurse this passed pawn, for one thing, keep their bishop from capturing it when it gets that far. And my rook is down here protecting this pawn, and they have doubled pawns. So I was in a pretty good situation. Okay, now I'm going to go back and see if I can figure out what I did wrong in the places where the game review said I did something wrong. Okay, this is all the way back on move 20, which is where I made my first mistake, according to the game review. I have a very slight advantage at this point. We both still have our queens on the board. And what I played was f4. I must have been thinking I wanted to clear a path for my rook. I assumed they would take, and then I would take back with my rook or my bishop. Either one is pointed at that square, and then I would be pointing my rook at that pawn. If I took back with my bishop would be well placed to protect or look at this whole diagonal here, as well as protecting this pawn, which it looked like they were about to attack. But f4, the game review says is a mistake. So I'm wondering what I should have done instead. This light squared bishop can't go very many places. Should I have brought a rook to the semi-open file? Played with this pawn, maybe? I guess I could have done that. My two rooks are defending each other. They can see each other. So had I pulled this up and they taken, I could have taken back. If they would have taken my rook, I could have taken their rook, and I would have been threatening to come all the way down and been completely controlling the A file. That's one idea. Had they taken here with en passant, of course, I could have just taken with my queen, but I don't know what I would have been threatening with my queen at that point. So I'm kind of at a loss. If it's not b4, or maybe it was rook to e1 to get behind an e4 push. So if they took, I could take back with my bishop and be pointed at the queen protected by the rook. I don't know. I'm going to turn on the lines and see what it says. It says rook a to e1 is my top move at this point. Okay, I was way off, but the last thing that I thought of was moving a rook to e1, but it has to be the a rook for some reason. My second best move is to play e4 now, and it says they wouldn't take it. They would just play g4. I'm not sure if they played g4, I would just lock that up, but I would assume they would take, and I wouldn't take back because their queen is sitting there. And my third best move is rook a to c1 to get behind the queen on the semi-open file. Okay, I did think of the semi-open file, but I wasn't sure. And what I played was f4, which wasn't that bad. Why did it count that as a mistake? It still says I have a +4, +5 advantage. I think that should have been an inaccuracy. But anyway, let's go on to the next one. Okay, here we are on move 24. Again, our queens are still on the board. As you see, after I played here, they did take, and I did take back with my bishop. But this is a few moves, four moves later. And I played queen to c2 here, and that was the only blunder that the game review counted for me for this game. I don't know. I mean, they had just threatened my queen. What should I have done? I wanted to keep protecting this pawn. That was part of the problem, because I thought if I moved my queen over to here or here, over to the e file or the f file, or if I brought it all the way back down to e1, if I did something like that, I thought they would just take this pawn. I considered briefly d2. I remember considering that. Why didn't I do that? I know why I didn't do that, I think. And I think that's because I was worried that they would advance this front c pawn, which would challenge me there, be protected by the knight. But I shouldn't have been worried about that because I could have just taken it. So maybe d2 was the best here. But I played c2 and watched the analysis bar, or the evaluation bar. I'm at +2, but when I move there, it takes us all the way to zeros. So I lost. This was my only blunder here. So what should I have done instead? Should I have just given up the pawn? Or should I have tried to protect it by going to d2? I'm going to say d2 because that continues protecting the b pawn. Maybe I don't want the b pawn protected. Maybe this is one of those instances where I want to give it up. So maybe I should have moved all the way out of the way and not protected that pawn. Let them take it and then put the rook behind there, gaining control of the fully open file. I think they then would have moved their rook over Oh no, they wouldn't have moved their rook over. Okay, so maybe I'm supposed to give up the pawn. Okay, well, I'm going to say either d2, which continues to protect the pawn, or e1 seems too passive, so I'm not going to guess that. I guess line up with the rook here against this undefended pawn. Okay, so I'm going to say either queen to d2 or queen to f3, and I'm going to turn on the lines. Okay, well, I was wrong. It says queen to e3 is my best move, plus 1.98, but queen to d2 was my second best move, and it's very close, 1.91. And queen to f3 is my third best move. Okay, so I was off except for what it says is the best move. It says my best move was e3. I'm not sure what that would have done. Well, okay, it would have lined up with the king. I get that. It would have, but it would have given up that pawn. Would they have taken it? It says no. Had I gone to queen to e3, their best move is to take their knight back. Their third best move is to take the pawn, but I still have a +2 advantage. Well, so what do I do if they take the pawn? Do I bring my rook over? No, I don't. Yeah, see, I would have messed this up. Had I played there, had I played my best move in the situation, and my opponent played their third best move here, I would have played the wrong move because I probably would have moved my rook over, but that's not one of my top three. Queen to d2 would be my top move then. g5 would have been my second best move, and bishop to d6 would have been my third best move. I wouldn't have guessed bishop to d6. I guess that keeps them from castling? Not that they're going to castle at this point. I don't know. So yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't play that. Okay, I think I had at least one more mistake and or blunder, so I'm going to go take a look. Okay, my other mistake was 2 moves later. After I had put my queen here, as I'd said, they took my queen. I took back. Them taking my queen, and game review said that was a great move. I took back, which I think I had no other choice with my rook, and I was protecting this pawn, which was kind of my whole idea of putting the queen there in the first place. But then they blundered here. The game report said that was a blunder. I didn't look and see what they should have done, but my next move was another mistake, and it was playing bishop to e5. That was counted as a mistake, and it was my last one. I'm not even going to look at my inaccuracies according to the game review. I think I had 7 of those. That's going to take too long. But I thought this was fairly obvious. It blockades one of their backward pawns. They have 2 backward pawns in this position. It blockades their backward pawn. And because they have the opposite colored bishop, nothing's going to dislodge this bishop. It also threatens the rook, which obviously the rook would just move. It's a 1-move threat. But I feel like I gain a lot of advantage when I do this, when I force the opponent to do something rather than letting them force me to do something. So that's what I felt like. I felt like I was getting a better position for this bishop, forcing that rook to move. But what should I have done instead? Should I have just taken the pawn? So I'm looking around. I don't want to abandon this pawn with my rook. Earlier it wanted me to go to d6, but what does that do? I guess it protects my a pawn, but it's not really pointing at anything from down there, is it? And I don't have a way to protect it. Their king can just come up. That's why I didn't get d6 earlier. I don't have a way to protect it. Earlier I did, because earlier I could have put my queen on d2. So if I put my bishop there and the king came up after my bishop, I could have moved my queen to f4 to protect my bishop, but I can't now. So it's probably not that. I'm going to guess taking this pawn or pushing past it. I'm going to turn on the lines. It says to take the pawn. Okay. My third best move is to capture this pawn. Can I pull this out? I'm sorry, I'm going to uncrop this. It says my second best move is to capture the c4 pawn. I am not sure about that whatsoever. Obviously, they would take back. Then they would have isolated doubled pawns here. Then what would I do? Oh, and then I could capture the rear one with check. Oh my. Okay, I'm going to follow that out just out of curiosity. That's, as you can see, it's by far better to do what I said, which was to take their f-pawn with my g-pawn. But this maintains an advantage for me. I would capture here. Anybody in their right mind would capture back. It's their only move that's not a blunder or a mistake. Then my only move here. See, I don't like these positions where there's only one move that maintains, but this one might have been fairly obvious to me at that point. If I had found rook capture c6, then this next one would have been obvious to me, which is capturing here with check. So now I've got 2 pawns for the rook. Where's the king going to go? Oh, they're going to block with the bishop. Oh, I'm also forking the rook. Oh, wow. Okay. I was only seeing that. But yeah, they're going to block with the bishop. I'm going to take the rook. And now I'm up a pawn. 1 point of material. I went down the rook and then picked up a rook. Okay, now what are they going to do? Now they're going to take here, and we're going to be even on material again. That's a pretty complicated line for me, so I'm going to exit back out of that. But yeah, playing here was a mistake, my last mistake of the game. And then it's also not too long before the king walk, because just right after they moved their rook is when I started my king walk that I opened the video with. Okay, now I'm going to take a look at my endgame. Before I get to the endgame, I saw that one of my other pieces had a very interesting journey in this game as well, besides my king, which ended up all the way down there in 13 moves. But my dark squared bishop, before that, my dark squared bishop had this pretty cool journey. So just watch this for a second. When their bishop took my knight, because it was about to get trapped, right? I was about to trap it back there. So it took my knight, and I took back with my bishop. They took that pawn, and then I moved my bishop out here. Once they moved that pawn forward, I thought, hey, I can protect my a pawn plus keep them from castling. That turned out to not be a great move, but then watch. As they challenged my bishop, I put it in there in the middle, so it had already been on d6 at one point. They put the knight there to challenge my bishop. I brought my bishop back. They pulled a pawn forward to challenge my bishop. I pulled my bishop back. They threw another pawn forward, and I brought my bishop back. And my bishop ended up back on that square that it had originally developed to, or it had gone there to take the knight when they captured my knight with their bishop. So my bishop, in varying... had made this complete journey around the center of the board. Anyway, I found that interesting. Now I'm going to go to the end game and see if I could have done that better. Okay, you've already seen up to this point where my king has just gone down there and taken their rook. So I am up a rook for a knight at this point. My opponent brought the bishop out to challenge my rook, and I just slid it over one because I didn't want them to just take that pawn. I guess I shouldn't have been worried about it. They came forward. I brought my king over to challenge their bishop. It doesn't have a lot of places to go, so it went down there into the corner. So I started bringing a pawn. They brought a pawn here, and I took it. Here I didn't care if they took that pawn with their knight because at least I took out a pawn with me. So they did that. I took that pawn because I felt like it was about to take me. They took back with their king. Another reason that I did that was because it would draw their king away from this pawn, and I wanted to get my king there. I thought they would probably come back to defend this pawn, but getting my king here to f6 would get out of the way of this pawn, which is now my biggest asset. So it looks like that wasn't bad because the evaluation bar hasn't jumped. But they didn't protect the rear pawn. They just challenged the bishop. Okay, I guess that's one way of protecting this rear pawn, because if I take, they'll take my bishop for free. So I protected the bishop by moving it back. The evaluation bar didn't jump again, so that must have been pretty good. I'm protecting it with the rook here. Well, they took it, which I don't think was a great move on their part, because I'm still threatening this pawn. And did they move to protect it here? Yes. But as I said, when I brought my king here, not only was I attacking their e-pawn, I was getting out of the way of my g-pawn. So now I can start marching it, and my rook is behind it. My opponent helped that happen by challenging my bishop and by trading for my bishop. So now my rook is behind the passed pawn where it's supposed to be. So they moved their pawn forward, and I moved my pawn forward. Okay, now it's minus 43 or plus 45, plus 51, 6, 56. Okay, the evaluation bar really jumped, so I'm guessing one of their last couple of moves was a mistake, but mine were not. So I was doing the right thing here. Oh, that was good. Okay, well, I'm in check, so I have to move my king. I can only move it 2 places. Well, 3. But I had just come from there. I didn't want to get back in front of my passed pawn. And coming toward the knight, I thought would allow their king to get around in front of my passed pawn. I don't know if that would have worked. Had I come forward and they went this way, no, I could have still just pushed my pawn. But then they could have brought their knight back here, protected by their king, and guarded the promotion square. Or for that matter, they could have brought their king in here next to it. But no, the knight would have been better because my rook's back there. Okay, so I did the right thing by going there. They can check me again, but I would just capture. So they went around, and that gave me mate in 15. Okay, let's see, we're on move 51. Okay, it took me 21 moves from here. But of course, I knew I had a mate. That's the cool thing about this position. This is one of those rare places where I can see a long-distance checkmate, because even though I don't see the exact sequence that Stockfish says, oh, it's now mate in 12, I do know that they can't stop this pawn from promoting. The worst they can do is scare me here with some of their own pawn stuff. But once my pawn gets close enough to the end, I'm ready to sacrifice my rook for one of their pawns if need be. Perhaps the only problem is that their two pawns are connected. So if they came forward, I would capture, and then if they captured back, then I'm ready to sacrifice my rook for that pawn because they can't stop mine. And of course, their other one can't go anywhere because it's blocked. So I knew I had a mate eventually here. I just didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out. Okay, I pushed, they pushed. I went ahead and queened because I was already that close. They took my pawn. I checked. Now it says mate in 14. So I backed up a little bit. Now I'm going to turn on the lines. And they played their best move, which was king to d5. Their other options, of course, were all of those. I did not play one of my top 3 moves here. Rook to e2 is my best move. Okay, that would have guaranteed a mate in 12, according to Stockfish's lines. And queen to a8 is my second best move. Queen to c8 is my third best move. Now, the a8 is check, but c8's not, and neither is this rook move. I do understand this. It blocks the pawn. But as I said, I was ready to give up the rook for some of this anyway. But what I played was queen to d8 check. And that took, okay, well, it says mate in 13. So how could, wait, go back. Yeah, see, that's not even listed. It's saying it would have been mate in 15 or more. But once I moved it, then Stockfish found it. Okay, so that wasn't bad. And they played there, which now says mate in 10. Did I play the best move here? No, not according to the lines that are showing. It says queen to c8 again, or rook to g4 check. I did consider that, but that would have left the only 2 moves because the king can't go back because my queen's cutting off all of the d file, but they would have come toward my rook, and then what would I have done? Had I checked, I did consider that, but I wasn't sure what I would do if they came toward my rook. I guess I could have, oh, maybe that's why it wanted to go to c8, because then I can protect my rook from there. From mate in 10, I went down to mate in 12 by going over here. One of my ideas here was to challenge the knight. Another of my ideas was to protect this pawn. Another of my ideas was, once their knight moved, to threaten this pawn. Also, I wanted to kind of get in here. I think that's why I chose this, is because I wanted access to the 4th rank, which is where the king is right now. That Stockfish says I made my checkmate 2 moves longer by doing that. Okay, but they didn't play their best move either. They should have come toward my rook, but instead, they went there, and that takes it down to mate in 6. I assume they went there to A, get their knight out of danger, and B, protect that pawn. But now I should have checked on a4, but I didn't. Why didn't I? Seems kind of obvious. Well, again, I thought they would go for my rook. Oh, but if they had gone for my rook, I would have come across here, right? If I had played queen to a4, it says their best move is to block with the knight. But I think they would have gone here, but that would have been mate in 1. Oh my. Nice. Okay, well, I didn't see that. I went here. Again, I was thinking that they wanted to go for my rook, but that's why I should have played queen to a4. But I thought they wanted to go for my rook. So if I went to c3, then they can't move their king because their king's protecting their knight. So that's what I played, but that takes us from mate in 6 back to mate in 13. But now it says that their best move is to go for my rook. Stockfish says that's what their best move is. I honestly wanted them to do that here because their knight's going to cause me some trouble. Knights are notorious for defending against checks from the queen because of the different places that they can go to. I kind of wanted them to go toward the rook because then I would get the knight. If they went there, I'm taking their knight. Then if they take my rook, I'm taking this pawn, and then nothing can stop me from taking the other one. They played their 3rd best move, which is putting their knight down there. Now my best move is rook to g3. I guess that's because it would have put us both pointed at this pawn. And rook to g5 is my 2nd best move. And queen c4 check. Where's c4? That's my 3rd best move. Well, I went down there. Number 1, I mean, my idea was to keep them from moving the pawn forward, but that takes us back to mate in 14. If they move the pawn forward now, I get the knight. I thought, again, if they came toward my rook, I would give up the rook at this point. But they came toward my rook. I decided not to give up the rook at this point. I decided to wait and let them take it. Once they took it, I would take this pawn and then the other one. So my waiting move was, I have a whole nother pawn over there, so I just started moving the whole other pawn. Well, they should have taken the rook at this point, but they didn't. They played that pawn moving forward. That gives me a mate in 4. Oh my, I just had to move over. But wait, if I moved over, wouldn't they have pushed their pawn? Hold on. If I had moved here, well, they only have 2 legal moves. Oh, if they had pushed the pawn, that would have been mate. Oh my. Okay. Their best move would have been to try to run away at this point. But if they moved forward, I would have moved forward with my king. Oh my. Okay, well, I didn't go there. I just kept pushing the pawn because they're going to run out of moves pretty soon. Their pawns can't go anywhere right now. I mean, this one can, but if it moves forward, then I'm taking the knight either way, and they're in big trouble. Actually, I think I would have taken the knight with the queen at that point because that would have been checkmate. So they really can't move this pawn. If they move the knight, I think I would have just taken it. Okay, so I just moved the pawn again. This time they did take the rook. Okay, now here I did play my best move, which was taking that pawn. They went there. A6 is now my best move. Okay, I did play that. And then now we're just going, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. They decided to go back and forth here to continue protecting their knight. And their knight is, of course, protecting their pawn. So I got another queen, which I almost never do. But I was afraid of blundering here. I knew my opponent was still playing. So maybe they thought they could pull it out or pull out a stalemate if nothing else. They went back. Then I sacrificed that queen for the knight just to get it out of the way. And now I took that pawn and trapped them on the back rank and brought my king. Okay. So I did do that a little more slowly than I could have, but I did it in a way that I was sure that I could do it. So even though Stockfish found a couple of moves that were better than what I found, I think I did okay in that end game, winning the wand game. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. If you see something that I missed or misunderstood, feel free to say so in the comments, kindly as possible. I do have feelings. Or if you have any questions, also, that's what the comments are for. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.